Welcome, everyone, to the St. Pete by Night Twitch stream where we play St. Petersburg by Night, a massive multiplayer 5th edition game set in the world of darkness, including Vampire the Masquerade, including Werewolf the Apocalypse, including Hunter the Reckoning, and who knows over the next few years how it's going to expand. Maybe we'll see some Mage the Ascension. Maybe we'll see some Wraith the Oblivion. Maybe we'll see Changeling the Dreaming, but who knows? That's all for the creative and brilliant minds over at World of Darkness. Here on St. Pete, my name is Kent, also known as Misha Kent on all social media. I am the lead storyteller of St. Pete by Night and the host of After Dark, which is our behind-the-scenes show where we speak about topics ranging from things happening in the world of darkness to what's going on in the game. We have storyteller interviews, we have player interviews, we discuss all kinds of topics ranging across the world of darkness, and we have missed you these past 2 weeks as the holidays and the new year took us away from the world of St. Pete by Night for a couple of weeks so that we could actually celebrate with our loved ones and families. And we hope you had a wonderful holiday season and a very, very happy new year. Tonight, we're going to be discussing a very, very interesting topic, and that topic is KindredCon. KindredCon is our annual event that takes place in St. Pete, Florida, where we get together for a meetup. As players, as staffers, as members of this amazing community, we get together, we celebrate, we spend some time together, and we really get to rejoice in this world we've created and this community we've created. So we're going to talk about KCon past, and we're going to talk about the upcoming sequel to our first KindredCon, KCon 2 Electric Boogaloo. But first, let me introduce this amazing panel of guests. Guests, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hi there. Hi, guys. I'm Nikki, also known as Crafty Mirage on all social medias, and I'm one of the storytellers over on St. Pete by Night.
Hey, I'm Cole. Cold Dark pretty much everywhere if you want to find me. I'm also one of the storytellers and one of the internationals on St. Pete by Night.
I'm Leisha, the Leisha May on anything you can find me on. And I'm one of the moderators.
And players. You're a player too.
I'm Rebecca, Mimic for Hire, Sire for Hire on TikTok, and Bomb Clancy everywhere else. I am a storyteller here at St. Pete by Night.
So, as always on After Dark, we encourage those who are watching along in the stream to ask questions in the chat, to interact with us. As you can see down below, we have the chat highlighted and it is popping up on the stream. So feel free to have your voice be heard. Ask out your questions if you've been to a KindredCon in the past, if you're looking forward to going one in the future, if you've never been to one and want to know how it all started and where it all came from, feel free to ask some questions and we would love to field them. Now, I gathered this specific panel of guests together because we have a wide variety here. We've got Crafty and Cole and Rebecca, who were at the first KindredCon. Cole coming all the way from Australia to join us at KindredCon. And then we have Leisha, who is going to be attending her first KindredCon, which is taking place January 19th through the 21st. So honestly, in about 2 weeks is when it's all going down. And I'm not sure I'm prepared, but we will see if that's the case. I'm sure it's going to be wonderful. But why don't we start with talking about the origin of KindredCon, how KindredCon came to be? And this is going to be kind of something I'm going to field at first, but then I'm going to toss it to you, what your thoughts were about the idea of it and how it all came together. But basically, when we started this server, over 2 years ago now, there was some discussion about doing a massive meetup, a big group gathering, and it was kind of pitched out there. And I had said it was my dream for the 1 year anniversary of St. Pete by Night to throw together a meetup. And basically the entire server said, bet. and people really, really invested and showed an interest in doing such a gathering that we were so lucky last year at the 1 year anniversary to host a meetup in St. Pete, Florida. And it was a great time, great turnout. About 40 or 50 people showed up, which is really good for a first time gathering. And they came from all over the country and, as our dear Cole represents, all over the world to gather for that event. And it was absolutely epic, just absolutely epic. But I'm going to ask you, my beloved guests and panelists, kind of what your experience was hearing about KindredCon. Did you believe it was something that was going to happen? Did you believe it was something that, could happen? And what kind of were your thoughts going into it? We'll talk about the event itself in a little bit, but what was it kind of your first thoughts as this idea was starting to take shape? Crafty, we'll go ahead and start with you.
I mean, when I heard about it, I was still at the stage in the server because like I had just joined and everything where I'm just like, I mean, that'd be fun, but it's Florida. And I say that as someone from Florida. And but the St. Pete area is nice, but like as it got closer and more people were being hyped and just being like, yeah, we're gonna go, we're totally gonna go. I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, fuck it. Let's go. Let's just go. Let's do it. Just do it.
Absolutely.
And no, it took off real quick. Like there was a lot of organization involved, and it was just amazing.
Yes, for sure. And it did turn out to be quite a great affair, to the point that I was insane enough to decide to do a second one and potentially future ones going forward. But now for a very interesting kind of international perspective, because this was a huge undertaking for you, Cole. I mean, this was, I think, your first trip to the States, if I'm remembering correctly, and you had planned, you'd wanted to do something like this, but this was kind of the catalyst that made it happen. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's my first trip overseas ever. So it was sort of the start of my international travel, which I'm so glad it was. Because I remember talking to you and a few other members early on, really early on. I don't think I don't think the first Elysium had even happened. And there was this sort of talk and this bounce around of maybe meeting up at the 1 year mark. And I was like, hell yeah. Like my mind, I was like, you know what? I wondered, could I do it? Could I do it? Could I figure it out? And I was actually on a call. It would have been June. So the date for KindredCon, the first one had been set. And I'm pretty sure it was in July of 2021, I think it was, the first year. And I booked my flights. And I remember I was on a call with Anna, who was a previous member, and a few other people. And I hit the deck in tears. It's so hard to explain that I was like, this is real. This is happening. Like, I'm traveling, I believe it was 18,000 kilometers, give or take.
Yeah.
To get to
Well, and over the course of several days, and I mean, we'll talk about the travel and all of that in a little bit here, but I mean, it took you some time to get here. Then, while here, you traveled up to the northern part of the country in the winter like a maniac, and then came back.
Like an Aussie, it's
and
fine.
then the story I really want to tell is the issue you ran into on the way home, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But it was so cool to have somebody from literally the other side of the world make such an effort to be a part of this event, and I think everyone in the community knows what a foundational part you are, and I know many people were already friends and fans of yours before the event, so having that opportunity to meet you in person, I know was a delight for several of them. Leisha, I'll be back to you in a second, but I'm skip over to Rebecca. Mimic, what did you think about this whole thing? I mean, you were such a foundational part in making it happen, really, in the first place, because you'd ask questions, you'd offer to help, you'd see, I mean, even day of, it was you and I running to the dollar store to grab LED candles and stuff as we're like scrambling to try and make this all happen. But what were your thoughts as this kind of concept was introduced and it was starting to take shape?
Yeah, so if you know me, you know it doesn't take a lot for me to travel. Like if you just tell me to go somewhere, I'll go. So I was in. but also I did some event planning back when I was a military spouse for about 10 years. So for me, I'm no longer a military spouse, so I don't have to do that. But I'm also, it's like one of those things where going into it, trying to figure out what we're doing, who's doing it. You don't want to step on toes, but also it's like one of those things where it's like, that if you do it, it'll be done right. But also Kent is the same way. So I'm like, just let me know what you're doing or what I can do because I will do it right. And so that was just like my default from the beginning. And I'm like, I can include other people, but I'll also do it right. So, like, what are we doing? Just let
Oh,
me know.
and that was
So, like,
so invaluable. Like your experience, for those who don't know, Rebecca, she goes to cons, 3 or 4 cons a year easily. And that's on the low end, I think. I think sometimes you even hit more than that. And so I really did rely upon your experience because I had not been to a convention before that. I had not been to anything of that caliber. I'd taken a road trip across the country and met several people, but I had never been to a convention esque setting. And so I remember several conversations between us, where I was like, what do we need to have? And you'd bring up things I hadn't even thought of, like, hey, maybe you need a waiver in case you need to kick people out. Maybe you need
Yep.
this and that and the other thing. We need rules. We need to know who the staff are. We need to, have these things. And really, that made me not only feel more comfortable, but more prepared when the time came because, like, I knew how to get a venue. I could rent a place. That's not hard. But you were like talking about numbers, what numbers to expect, what kind of people are going to show up. Is alcohol going to be an issue? Like these kinds of things. You really covered all those bases for me. And you are definitely my like second in command when it comes to event planning because you just know so much and have such a wealth of knowledge to provide. And that's also what made us going to Darkness Emergent such a success is that you just were so comfortable in a setting that isn't your own to be able to take command and be like, yeah, we need an Uber here, we need a Lyft here. I need to use Google Maps to try and hire an Uber once, but that didn't really work out. But overall, like you are such a great travel companion and a person to organize events with. So I want to thank you for that publicly and openly because I don't think it would happen nearly as successfully if it wasn't for you. But yeah, that's so wonderful. Leisha, being someone who wasn't even a part of the server at that time, hadn't heard anything about any of this, but then coming in and finding out that these kinds of things happen, what was kind of your feelings about the possibility, especially as someone who doesn't travel very often, coming into kind of this environment and hearing that an event like this is happening or has happened?
My first thought was these are a bunch of weirdos.
That's fair. It's very fair.
Um, and then my second thought was, well, that's okay because maybe I'm a weirdo too. And the more I heard about it, because I think I joined the server around October, but I didn't really interact with it until like mid-December. That's when I actually started playing and taking part. And everyone was super excited about this, and I'm like, what is this? Like, why is everyone so gung-ho about this? And then once I got like more into it and met everybody and learned what everything's about, I was like, okay, I need to start planning now so I could go to the next one. Like by the end of January last year, I was like, okay, I'm going if there's another one.
Oh yeah, so you were a part of the server, like you saw all of the
I had
conversation back
just
and forth, and
joined.
okay,
Mhm.
yeah, that's right. Okay, so yeah, you
Yeah,
kind of got to witness from the outside what it was like
yeah,
for an event like this to happen, and kind of
yeah. And this will
yeah.
be my first meetup of anything. I've never been to a convention before. I live in the Pacific Northwest and I'm going to Florida. This will be the first time I've been on an airplane for more than like 45 minutes. I've done like a tiny flight on like a 50-person airplane. So I'm like, let's do it. I've never I'm just diving in the deep end. Like I'm so excited to come and see everybody and get to experience all of this community that we've built here in person.
Yeah, and you're coming from
So
the West Coast, so you're going literally all the way across the country which is
Yeah.
nothing to all the way across the world. We understand that, but it's still an undertaking for somebody who has never traveled more than 90 minutes or whatever the case may be.
I bought my first suitcase last week.
Wow.
So I could come.
So I guess my follow-up question to that would be what are you experiencing any nerves or how are you feeling about all this? Because you're having several firsts all at one time. You're having your first big travel excursion. You're having your first big meetup with people from the internet that you haven't, you've only known with a screen in between you. What are kind of the feelings that are going through you about that whole thing?
There's a tiny bit of nervousness, but mostly that I'll not know what I'm doing. It's more self-conscious. Mostly I'm just freaking pumped. I think earlier in my life I would have been terrified to do any of this. I have a lot of anxiety. And I kind of reached a point where I'm it's time to do things that make you happy.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
You have to do things that are scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Just rip the Band-Aid off and go for it and see what happens.
Exactly.
And what's the worst that's going to happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah. If I don't like it, I never have to do it again. But I don't think that's going to happen at all.
Probably.
No.
We've got a lot of experienced travelers in our group, even in this chat, especially with Rebecca, who travels so much. Your frequent flyer miles must be insane. So, you also know you can always reach out to get tips about traveling and stuff like that, especially while it's happening. So let's talk about the first ever KindredCon. Let's talk about what that event was. So I had no expectations for it when I first proposed the idea and actually started pursuing it. And just like most things on this server, like the server itself, when I thought, oh, maybe I'll get 20 people and 200 showed up, it was kind of one of those things where it was yeah, I'm going to try something and see how it goes. And it ended up being a big deal. I also got to play taxi driver for most of that event because I think I went to the airport 12 times there and back. Luckily, the airport only being 20 minutes from my house is pretty convenient. But Crafty, why don't you walk us through kind of what your arrival was like, what the anticipation and the build up and the actual travel and the first day you're setting down an arrival at the airport was like?
So, when I arrived in St. Pete, I had been up for 24 hours already because I was anxious as all heck going down there. What helped a little bit though was during my layover, I got to run into one of the members of St. Pete at the airport. We realized a month before the flights were all ready to go that we had the same connecting flight. So we met up at the gate, and it was Panchi Artista. She does all the artwork for several of our characters on our server, one of our sponsored vendors and everything.
And from Brazil. Also an international traveler.
Yeah, she came, but I hadn't slept at all because of how nervous I was. I got maybe 30 minutes of sleep on the plane once I ran into Panchi because I don't know, just a little bit of the nerve went down and I was able to just close my eyes for a little bit. But basically I got there, I got picked up by Kent. Oh my God. When we arrived, Kent was there with another TikToker who was on the server at the time, Gibbous Rage. And Panchi just leaves my side and runs at Kent and literally leaps on him. I'm surprised he was able to catch her and not fall.
As was I. I was not expecting that whatsoever. And I was like, oh, great, I'm going to start KindredCon with a concussion. This is fantastic. But yeah, she is a cannonball of a person, to say the very least. And that was an unexpected greeting, but very nice. It was very nice.
But yeah, it was once Kent was the only person I had met from the server initially before getting to KindredCon. So I pretty much kind of attached myself to him just to keep nerves at bay for the first day. I basically rode around with him and Kate. He dropped me off at my Airbnb, and then I got I went out to meet more people. And I think by the time I got to bed at 11 p.m. that night, no, it was midnight because we all went drinking. It was past midnight. We were all drinking. I think I
Yeah,
had
that
been
was
up
like
for
3 a.m. at that point because
yeah.
that was
Oh,
a long
okay.
night.
Yeah, and I was wearing heels and we were walking around. It was great. I made several poor decisions that first day. But no, I'm pretty sure that the final count was I had been up for 38 hours before finally going to sleep, just from anxiety alone. But I don't regret the anxiety. It was a lot of fun. I got to see a lot of people I'd been dying to meet. Like Friday night, I literally woke up hung over like crazy, and my first initial thought was to get an Uber to go to Kent's house because I knew Champ was there, and I'm just like, I don't care if I'm hungover, I want to see Champ.
Now, Cole, tell us about your travel, having
no.
to travel all the way from Australia to the United States. Kind of take us through the lead up to KindredCon, because you had to make a lot of preparations. Like, you had a lot going into this that probably spanned back at least 4 to 6 months before the event itself, and then the event. So talk us through that whole process for like what the preparation was like. What did you have to do in order to make a trip like this possible, and then what that first travel day was like?
Well, being honest, the process itself leading up to was actually fairly simple because I had flight, passport, and an ESTA, which is just your visa. And because Australia and America have got really good relations, I filled out the online form, paid my like $30, and within 48 hours, I had my ESTA. And that's 2 years I've got that for. So for 2 years, I can just come and visit. It's not a big deal. I just turn up. So it's kind of simple. The actual day of travel, my
Or
flights, 'cause I
days,
bought
I
them
guess,
so
days
cheap.
of travel, since it was kind of.
Yeah, it was
Although you were going back in
32,
time, weirdly.
but it was 32 hours because I went from from Melbourne, which is the nearest capital city to me, to Sydney. I missed my first flight because the airline were delayed. So I had a 2-hour unexpected layover in Sydney. Then it was Sydney to LAX, where I met with 2 people, one of them being Tyler, who's a storyteller, who they came and saw me. I got to go to Santa Monica because I had a 14-hour layover in LA. So the guys come pick me up, went and got coffee. That was so hard to find a good coffee, but I found a coffee. Went to Santa Monica Beach, had a look around, had a really nice time. The guys got to experience me being bored at a beach and going, hey, she's off, run. They're like, where'd she go? A few people saw that over my trip. And then after I went back, found a spot at LA, I literally slept on the floor in LAX right next to my gate. Then it was LAX to Miami. Hour layover in Miami to Tampa, which is where you picked me up at some ridiculous o'clock in the morning.
Now, for those who don't know me, I'm a night owl, so that was like dinner time, bedtime ish for me. But yeah, I remember that.
I think it was like you stayed up an extra 3 hours to pick me up than you normally would. And you picked me up. We went back to your place. I'm like, you basically almost threw me like, here's the shower, here's the spare bed. I'm like, sweet, passed out in the spare bed because I was so exhausted. But it was absolutely amazing. Every single piece of travel was worth just walking off that plane and being able to see you and giving you a massive hug. Because you were that first, Tyler and the other individual, they were my first port of call in America. But we'd been friends. We'd been talking on TikTok since October, 2020, I believe it was.
Yeah, I think 2021, because it was right before we started the server. We hadn't been talking. Yeah.
But we'd been talking for over a year. We spent a lot of time chatting and catching up. And it was just amazing to be able to catch up with you. And I was very, very lucky. I got the chance to have a couple of days of like being able to go out for dinner and hang out with you before the chaos started. That was something I know I really appreciated.
Yeah, very few knew that Cole actually came in about a week before everyone else started arriving. So we had a
Yeah.
good time where we got to spend some time together. We got to kind of see people as they were arriving. We got to hang out with How's Life and her husband,
amazing.
which was fantastic. We got to spend some time with them. And then you took another trip, even though I could not understand how you could possibly get on another plane after how long you'd been traveling. I think you had been here like 2-3 days before you hopped on another plane to leave for.
Yeah, I landed Thursday and I left Monday.
Okay, so yeah, like 3-4 days. Yeah, so you pretty much turned around, hopped on another plane, headed up north for like 3 or 4 days, and then came back. And so I remember taking you to the airport for that. You headed off, and then yeah. So kind of the motivation behind that, if I remember correctly, was to visit your partner who lives here in the States.
My
And
partner is in Massachusetts. Yes, so
you got to experience Northern America, the Northeast of America, in January, like a psychopath. What was that like? What was that dramatic change like? Because it was still cool here, but it was not Northeast cool here. What was that like for you? What was that kind of turnaround and shift of temperatures from Australia to Florida, Florida to the Northeast, back to Florida?
it was like traveling here in Oz. Because if you go from Tasmania to Queensland, it's like Florida. Sorry, it's like the Northeast to Florida because Tasmania's cold. It's near Antarctica. Like it's cold weather. And I have family in Tasmania, so I'm used to that shift because I lived in Queensland for a while. It was absolutely amazing. It was hilarious because when I left, I was a wreck when I left, like legit. You know, Ken, I got off that flight and then Crafty and a couple of other people were there and I just tears. I was just tears the whole time. I was a wreck.
And then 30 minutes of giggles.
Yes.
We'll get to that in a second.
But the difference was actually pretty awesome and it was really cool because what people don't know is Australia and the US are approximately the same size, but we're flipped. Our
Right.
north is hot and our south is cold, and I'm from the south of us. So it was actually pretty awesome. It was kind of scary that a couple of hours after I left, a blizzard hit that snowed the airport out, I think, for a couple of days. So, like, hair on my teeth just got out. It was all good. It's fine.
Yeah, so you went, you spent a few days away and then came back, and you came back to quite the like greeting party because it just happened that another flight, like people had been arriving and had started arriving, and a flight with 2 other members of the server at the time had arrived literally minutes before you did. So you kind of had a rather big greeting party waiting for you when you arrived. What was that experience like, having come back, like when it was just me picking you up versus I think 5 of us being there, because I believe it was Kate, Crafty, and then
Kitsune
Jinx
and
and
Laihi.
Kit, and Kit. It was amazing. It was every step of this trip. I was so nervous before I got on the first plane. Once I got on the plane that got me out of the country, I just relaxed. I'm like, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. It's happening now, whether I like it or not. If things go to hell, well, I've got enough people I can call. Worst case scenario, I change my flight and I go home, you know, like, so every step of the way, everything that happened that was different, I just embraced it and I dived in because I'm like, stuff it. This is an amazing experience, once in a lifetime experience. That now I'm hoping to next year, it better be happening next year. Otherwise, I'm just going to turn up on your doorstep.
You and the squirrels, apparently.
Yeah, me and the squirrels. It's going to happen. But that was amazing. And being able to see, because Crafty was someone that I've wanted to meet for so long because we connected before St. Pete even happened. And same as Kate, Close Spirits, like we had connected before St. Pete happened. And so to be able to see them, like that added to the tears. And then Kit and Laihi with that added to the tears. And I was like hanging on to you at one point going, ah.
So,
I was a wreck. It was hilarious.
My shoulder was wet.
I'm going to talk about the importance. I'm going to take a moment here for a PSA about the importance of car maintenance. especially shocks and struts, because we decided, probably foolishly, to load everyone that was at the airport that day into my tiny Honda Fit, which
Five-seater.
I will say, lots of space. It's a great car. I love that car.
It is.
But we fit 6 people into a 5-seater car, which ended with Crafty draped across the laps of 3 individuals while we made the drive to downtown. And while Florida roads are better than most, I'm from the north and now living in the south, I do not take for granted how great our roads are. If you don't have good shocks, you feel every bit of it. And so that led to a rather very bumpy and interesting excursion all the way to the downtown area, where there was dancing and drinking and a bar, just a whole bunch of mess of trouble happening that night. But that was also simultaneously the day you came into town, Rebecca, because you got in and you pretty much went straight to dancing, because there was like a swing dancing thing happening in the arts district of St. Pete. Talk me through kind of what your feelings were going into that travel day and the lead up to KindredCon, since you'd been such an instrumental part of making it all happen. Kind of what was your thoughts? Was it just kind of run of the mill, okay, I'm traveling another place, or was there something different about this one?
There was a lot of preparation going into it, like half preparation, because there was a lot of it that I couldn't do in person.
Right.
Because there's a lot of prep work that is phone calls, is deposits, but then there's the stuff that you really cannot do. Like you can't just buy the food months in advance because you need it for the night of. So, and then there's always last minute cancellations. So you never really know. So there was some like trepidation there, but also I hadn't met anybody. While I had connected with people because I had gone from player and played with a lot of the individuals, I had also gone into storytelling. So at that time, we only had a couple storytellers. So leading up to that, so we we were like trying to run the server leading into KinderCon, even though we had a break. So it was trying to like, it's like, even though we go on breaks in St. Pete, we're never gone. There's always stuff going on behind the scenes or, in real time where people like that's where they land. That's their daily landing spot. So keeping up with that was good. However, I had just said, hey, I've got an Airbnb. If you don't have your housing, let's get hotels or Airbnbs together. So I had already had that managed, but I hadn't met those individuals yet.
Yeah, you had a mixed mash of people too. I mean, I think
Yeah.
2 of them
Hmm.
knew each other from before,
Yep.
but you had another individual and then yourself who
Hmm.
had no connections to anyone.
No.
And so it was a really kind of
Hmm.
patched together arrangement that worked out. And I
Hmm.
believe during that time you ended up staying at 2 Airbnbs, or were you at the one the whole time?
So we got a hotel the first night, and
Right.
arguably the hotel itself was amazing. The first night I got in, I told the person who's driving me, I'm like, I have to get food. So we went to Wawa. I was really impressed and excited about it. Got my cheesy chicken rice bowl, and then I sat there, and it was just beautiful, just getting in at the perfect timing, no traffic, no delays, just getting in. Tampa is an amazing airport to just pick up your people and go. I
One of the
found them.
best in the country, no
It
question.
was it was great, and so I got to land, go to Wawa, go to this hotel, and I'm sitting there. The way that the hotel was, it's over on the Treasure Island side of St. Petersburg. It's the Thunderbird Resort, and so their resort is a C shape with a pool in the middle overlooking the beach. So you can just walk into the um you can just walk into the beach if you want, into the
Hmm.
ocean. So I was just sitting there. That was like my introduction to St. Pete. I'm sitting there with a person I'd never met. We're just, about to go to dance. And that is the point where I learned that more people ended up going, because I had told people, I'm like, I dance every week. I'm landing on a Thursday. I'm going to be at dance this week. And there was like probably 8 people there, and I didn't anticipate that. I just had posted and said, "Hey, if you wanna show up, I think it's like $10 for the lesson." And then there's, stuff after that. So that's really where I got to see Cole. Cole was there and Caitlin was there, Tyler was there, and it was cool, but also I was like, oh my God, like, these people are here. But like I had come in like maybe 5, 10 minutes late to the lesson. So I kind of wanted to like scooch over and give them a big hug, but it's kind of like, oh, they're there and I'm here and I want to say hi, but they're
There's
over
other
there and I
people
don't want to
here
be rude.
that don't know what's going on, and yeah.
Yeah. And also, like I've attended those free, like, or those like low cost dropping classes, and there's usually like, 10 people maybe. And there was, because of us, double the amount of people there.
Yeah, I'm sure the instructors weren't expecting, or any of the organizers were expecting such
No,
a turnout.
no, no. And it's really hit or miss. And sometimes at the beginning of the year there's more people because they're doing like New Year resolutions or whatever. But yeah, people were there, everyone got to dance, and I have a video of Cole and I dancing outside. And yeah, the people were just really like, who are you guys, where are you from, what's you're doing? And it was kind of funny because as they're talking to us, Tyler's like, I'm from SoCal, and I'm like, I'm from Washington, and Cole's like, I'm from Australia. And so they're like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Like, what is
Yeah,
going
this
on?
is,
Because
I want to preface this by saying this is a local kind of group studio thing that probably gets some retirees, probably some college students from time to time. They weren't expecting an international invasion of people coming. I guarantee you they had no expectations, especially with the holidays being over, with a lot of the tourism dying down, to have all of these people suddenly show up like it is the holidays looking for stuff to do. I'm sure it was kind of a reality check for them that there
yeah.
are a lot going on.
Yeah, and it's at the warehouse. It's like the warehouse district. And so
Hmm.
I was a little bit nervous about the area. Like when I first found out about it, I'm like, where am I going? I mean, I'm still gonna go, but like,
I gotta
what is
find
going
it.
on? I just gotta find it. And it was interesting because it is kind of in like a industrial area, and everyone's like, where do we park? And I'm like, I don't know. We're like parked on sandy, rocky, not grass. I don't know if we're even in a parking lot, but other people are parking there, so we're parking there too. Um, and so then after that, people started dropping out after a few hours, and this is where you all were walking down on the pier, and people had gone to the Dolly, I think, and other people had gone down by the pier because a lot of shenanigans had happened there in game. So people really wanted to see it and see, the marina and the yacht club and the hotel where there was a wedding. And while everyone was down there, we were trying to find, the three or four of us that were left, tried to find the three or four that had left. And like we were
I
on
think we ended
cell
up with like
phones, they were on
18
cell
people or so at
phones.
that point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so then
We went
when we
drinking.
finally like backtracked, that's where everyone came up. There was like probably like 10
Oh,
or
easily.
15 of you all, and
Easily.
then there
Yeah.
was like three or four of us that had kind of found,
Well, and
our way
as
around.
as opposed to other conventions, other than the Saturday night event, there was never really a central meeting place. Like, it was very much
No.
a herding cat situation. It's not like we had a hotel where everybody was staying at and like a specific hall that we'd rented for the whole weekend. This was like, hey, you're coming into town, do whatever the hell you want. On Saturday, we'll get together for a big shindig, and then Sunday you can, enjoy your last day or whatever, and kind of go apart from that. But in this particular instance, we were using Discord to herd cats, which it literally was herding cats, because this whole just horde of us had descended upon the city, and people were arriving as of that day, and people were arriving like earlier that day, later in that day. Like, it was, everyone was kind of converging all at once. And so we had our Discord using, images, photos, people posting photos of the entire encounter and all this other stuff. But somehow a whole horde of us kind of converged downtown near the pier all at the same
Yeah.
time. And I had set up a walking tour for those that were interested to kind of see some of the locations downtown. Another PSA for all of you out there: stay hydrated and eat. Whenever
And
you
wear
even
comfortable
start
shoes.
to get hungry, eat, because that pier stop that was supposed to be a 15 to 30-minute jaunt ended up taking 2 or so hours for us to have, because people just kept appearing. They just kept appearing or being like, "Where are you guys at?" and just showing up.
It's like they crawled out of the water and climbed onto the pier.
100%.
Oh yeah.
So make sure to eat, because that evening,
Bring
while
snacks.
fun, led to a certain hangry lead storyteller at the time who really just got fed up with meeting people and immediately was
Yeah.
regretting his life decisions.
He just turned around at one point and just said, "We're going to Faux Cheesy. If anyone wants to come, that's where we'll be eating."
Well, and it was a Thursday night, so restaurants were closing earlier. You know, it wasn't the night out at this, or they were
Yeah.
extremely pricey because we were downtown, right along the water. So it was like, unless you wanted to pay like $100 for a meal, there were less and less options becoming available. And so that's when the horde of us kind of moved our way up into the downtown area and headed to a local establishment known as Faux Cheesy, which
hated
makes
it.
grilled cheese. I know you did, but I am going to say nice things about them because they took on our mass of people
Yes.
right before closing and were very, very generous enough to take us all on. But yeah, so that was kind of the first real night for a lot of people. I know, Cole, you'd been there previously, but that was the first real night of it. And then we led into the weekend of events. Friday, there was a big get together at a local spot known as the Saint, which is kind of a
That
very
was a nightmare.
themed drinking location bar that is themed in like more of a church kind of faith-based underground, speakeasy style establishment. And I know that was a big chaotic event, but Crafty, why don't you go ahead and talk about the night at the Saint? As one of the people
So-
who organized it, I believe, or at least helped organize it to a certain degree.
Yes. It was me and another player. We organized a Saint meetup, and we had to make a reservation because it was a Friday night. And like when we got there, we realized when we were told, if your whole party isn't here, we can't seat you. So we were just like all the careful planning we did of like putting people in specific, because we had to book their two big tables and we had to reserve them. And they were being very generous, extending out, like bringing in chairs for one of the tables because it only was supposed to seat 6 and they managed to have it fit 8. So 18 people showing up at the same time, and not everyone showing up exactly at the same time. And what you don't know, what I will tell you about the Saint is they keep you to a time limit. Your own on their busy nights, your reservation is only for 90 minutes. And any tardiness factors into that. So we really only got an hour inside. But while it was very fun, it was a little like I wish I had known. I like in hindsight, I'm glad like knowing all of the stuff I know now will help factor, because like initially they were going to put everyone's drinks on one tab, which was going to be way too much for everyone. So like when I heard that, I had to like pull the manager aside and just be like, listen, let's talk you and me for a second. I used to be a head chef. I know what you're going through right now, but I can assure you, I can tell everyone in our party that they can only order at their table. There's not going to be any issue with people ordering back and forth between the tables. Because I know we are walking around a lot, but everyone will order at their table and stuff. It's fine.
And they were great.
And
It
again,
was great, yeah.
I can't say enough nice things about the people at all the establishments we visited,
We
because
were
I do
handing out
know for a
business cards.
fact they were not expecting this kind of business on a Thursday or Friday night in January, with again all these international people. But to describe this Saint, which was at the time a pretty popular locale in our game, it's a red lit establishment that has a lot of religious iconography, but kind of has a sinner versus saint vibe. They have
You
an
could
entire wall,
literally
where you put up confessions to that you pin up on the wall, and I believe some of our confessions are still up there to this very
Yeah.
day, if I remember
Mhm.
correctly. And yeah, it's a great place. All the waitresses are dressed as nuns or priests.
sexy nuns.
And it's you have to do a confession and say a prayer to get in, like a speakeasy through a secret door. It's definitely at least a tourist attraction. It's worth visiting at least once, if not multiple times. While the prices are steep, being a downtown and
They're
themed
good, though.
establishment. But the drinks are great. The service is phenomenal. The ambiance is worth experiencing. So anybody who's watching who's never been to the St. Petersburg area, if you find yourself in this neck of the woods, I definitely recommend at least taking a look at it and
Go on a
stopping
weekday.
by. Yeah, on a weekday.
Go on a
for
weekday.
Sure. For sure. But it is a very cool thing to experience at least once, because I've never seen anything like it before or since, to that degree, to the amount of detail they put in. Uh, and that evening, you guys all ended up going to a bar afterwards, before a horde of you drunken idiots converged at my
sober.
house.
I was sober.
I'm teasing. But we ended up having a nice bonfire in the yard, which was very cool. And it was good.
ate my
Again,
food finally.
seeing people for the first or second time, really getting that sense of community. Everybody was looking out for each other, which I can't commend this community for enough. I mean, having literally just met in person for the first time, I did feel a really strong sense of community amongst everyone. That everyone was making sure everybody got where they needed to go safely. Everybody was, for the most part, behaving themselves, and really respectful, in my mind, of the area that they were in, the town they were in, the people that they were working with. I felt like everybody really brought a level of respect, which means a lot to me as someone who lives here. I take a lot of pride in this city and this area, and so to see that reflected in these people who had only heard about this place in fiction or from Google Earth or from image searches, I could definitely tell there was a reverence and a respect for it, and that was very, very, very valuable. Mimic, why don't you go ahead and talk about your experience that night, as well, since you did go to the Saint. You were kind of part of the events that evening.
Yeah, the Saint was fun because I got in with the second group. And so we were in the back area. And so I don't know, I'm old, so I don't go out to drink a lot. I don't drink a lot in general. So the drinks were delightful, the ambiance fantastic. I think that, the whole setup really fun where they have like the confession booth. When you walk in, you have to get the confession. And our confession last year was, this was supposed to be dry January, but here we are.
Yep.
And so that's what got us in then. And what's funny is that I brought it into my coterie game on the server now, and they actually went to um, the Saint Instagram to get the code so that they could get in game, which was fun for them. But so from there, we went out to a drag show. And so there was only like a couple people who had discussed going. And
And instead, the horde moved.
every
Yes,
single
the horde
person
moved.
went. Every single person went. And so the thing about downtown and parking is that you have the majority of these people who, right, I would say the majority of people were already going by Uber anyways. But the few people who had cars had to find parking. In any city, anywhere that you're parking
On a
downtown on a
Friday night,
Friday
yeah.
is going to be tough. So everyone was parked everywhere. And so we had kind of talked ahead of time, like, what are we going to do if something happens or if anything happens? And so um, we did end up like, I sobered up pretty good. But even there was like a part where I fixed a part of my dress and someone came over like really concerned. They're like, "Are you okay?" They're like, "Are you like drunk? Like your dress isn't the way that it was when you came in here." And I'm like, "No, I did this intentionally because it's hot. Because I'm from the north, the Pac Northwest. So for me, anything over 65, I'm sweating to death,
Yeah, get ready, Leisha. It's gonna be,
Yeah.
especially with the
So
humidity. Oh my god.
yeah, and
It's gonna be
so
delightful.
yeah, it was nice, but it's similar to when Kent and I were in San Antonio a couple months ago where I'm like sweating to death and I'm like, my thighs are touching, and Kent's like bundled up in a hoodie, like, what the hell? this is too cold for me. I moved from Michigan to avoid this weather. And I'm like walking with my arms out because I don't want my arms to be sweating next to my armpits. I'm like, "Ah, I'm dying, and it's the same temperature for both of us. So there we are, outside of this club, and I'm like dying of heat. So I got like a table, which is fine. Um, but I just stopped drinking because I'm like, it's too hot. It's too hot. And also everyone else is like just having a good old time. And so um, I had reached out to one of the other mods ahead of time, like, so usually when there's cons or conventions, there's kind of like a safety team or like people who, you don't have to like ruin your vacation to mom people, but like someone has to be cognizant and know like stuff's going on or that they can be point people for people to go to. So I'm like, I can be that person. And so, while we were there, we were making sure to kind of like keep track of everyone. So I think that that was a good reference when people saw that my dress was like a little bit different. They were checking in on me like, "Are you okay?"
Absolutely. And we had a lot
Like
of people step up. We had several
mhm.
members of the community step up and really ensure the safety of others and check in with people. And I know there were a few of us that had been rides who had rented cars or had cars that lived in the area that ended up being chauffeurs for a lot of the rest of the community. But it was also from a safety thing, just caring about the people that you play with despite having just met them, that a lot of people showed up and showed out that during that event. It was really, really great.
Yeah. So then after that, we ended up making our way back to Kent's place because just I don't know, we just ended up there and then we went back home and Saturday went off. But it was a good night. It was a really good night. I think that with a couple people, a couple members of the community picking something that they thought would be interesting, multiple people went to, whether it was a drag show or Lindy Hop dance or a speakeasy. We had multiple people who
People just wanted to be
contributed.
together. They
Yeah,
wanted to be
people just
together,
wanted to
Yeah,
be
which is
regardless of
together.
great.
what we did. Cole, go ahead and explain your experience that night too, because you were a part of a lot of those festivities, and you were kind of a mainstay and attraction during the entire KindredCon because so many people like this was going to be potentially a once in a lifetime opportunity, considering the distance and everything. Kind of talk through
Yeah.
what that night was like for you.
Well, it was absolutely amazing. So the state was just, I had so much fun. Even just waiting out front with everybody, like as Crafty said, like trying to get everybody together. It was a little bit chaotic, but people learn I have a loud voice that night. It's not just on microphone. I can make it boom. But it was great. Once we got in there, the drinks were absolutely just phenomenal. The mixology is amazing in there. Again, if you get the chance, just the skill level of the bartenders are just amazing.
He
The
put a bubble
food,
on mine.
everything. Yeah, some of the whiskey sours that I saw, I would have sat there just to taste them all. I would have been stuffed by the end of
Would have
it, but
cost
I
a
wanted to
mint
taste them
too,
all.
but
Look, I stopped stressing about, to be
exactly,
honest,
exactly.
stressing
It's a
about. I'm like,
vacation.
I'm
It's enjoy.
overseas,
Yep.
don't care. We went to Enigma, and that was actually the club we went to, and it was amazing. Um, we walked, me and a whole group of people. We actually walked there. Because the whole Uber and everything, I went, let's stuff it. We're gonna walk. That was, I'm gonna be brutally honest, the first time I got a bit of a reality shock. There was a loud bang during the walk, and everybody else dropped it. I'm like, what?
Yeah, let me see what it
That
is.
was I'm like, what's that?
Another kangaroo got loose.
Pick the international. Pick the international right there. But we got there. The show was amazing. The atmosphere was amazing. It was just nuts because I ran into people there that I hadn't seen anywhere else yet. And I swear I left Florida and my ribs, I think I was black and blue for a few weeks from all the hugs. But it was just, I can't even actually verbalize a lot of it. Just how it felt. It was amazing. I agree. The amount of people that kept an eye out for everybody. I know people learned how quick I can move that night as well. Because they think I was at this bar, but then I was out the back. But then I was back out here. And they're like, what? I've got kids. I'm used to chasing them. I knew where everybody was. We were good.
So I'm going to take a break from the timeline of events to ask some questions that came in from the chat. Tyler specifically, disgruntled goat for those watching, asked, "Where are you looking forward to going this time?" Now, Cole unfortunately is unable to join us, but you can answer in general. Where would you like to visit when you do come back? And Leisha, having no experience here, having heard some of the stories already so far, where would you like to go? But we'll start with Crafty and go down the line. Where are you most looking forward to visiting or seeing this time around?
I want to go to the golf course. I want to go to the mini golf course. Treasure Cove.
Smuggler's Cove.
Smuggler's Cove. I want to go Smuggler's Cove because me and Champ have been joking about how we're gonna steal one of the gators. It's gonna be fine.
Sure,
I
absolutely.
don't have a pet gator. It's fine.
Why not?
No, it's because Smuggler's Cove in St. Pete is like one of the places that a lot of players ended up at a lot, especially if they had a connection to Al, because he loved mini golf. And it was a lot of fun, but also that place has a lot of, not just has a lot of brevity, but also trauma.
Yes, it does. Cole, where would you like to go to next time you come to visit?
Bacon bitches.
Yes.
But no, I want to go to Smuggler's Cove to see a gator. I didn't get to see one, and I was so annoyed.
Yeah, they're a
Aussie
little
didn't
more
get to
docile
see
there, but yeah, you guaranteed to see a gator while you're there.
I didn't see one. I was so upset. But no, I would love to. The list is too long. The list is too long.
Okay.
I need to spend a month there.
Leisha.
It's hard to pick one thing because there's so many things I want to see. There's like the Dolly, that would be awesome. The Birchwood, just everything. The Fine Arts Museum for sure. But I think like those are all things I could do whenever. I want to go to Kent's house and I want to sit in the chair.
I did it. I did it.
It's
and
a
guess
new
what?
chair.
I'm a storyteller.
New chair.
Okay, I gotta get my butt print in it.
Yeah.
The old chair's in the back room.
I'm good.
It's been retired.
Gotta sit in the
No, thank
chair. We
you.
gotta see where the magic happens.
It's a mess right now, but and Rebecca, where are you most looking forward to visit this year?
Oh, I mean, I'm excited to do dance again, but I went to Three Daughters Brewing more than once. So, Three Daughters Brewing was a place. So I was invested in the Anarchs, and so the players, the Anarch players, and we got together more than once at Three Daughters Brewing, and it's a really cool place where it's like an indoor outdoor place where they have a lot of really good ciders for one, but they have like a little not little, but they have like
It's a
a
massive
little
place, yeah.
so they have like the side area that's an indoor bar area where you can sit and eat and they have decent food. Um and then they have like a little bar area to the left of that, pretty big clean bathroom area. And then beyond that, they have this huge like barn area. It's huge. It's massive. It's like a
Mhm.
barn that the one area is completely exposed and they have it set up like how they could do all of their brewing in there. So, but they just have dozens and dozens of tables and they've got cornhole and they had like a live band playing both of the days I was there, but the one end of it is completely exposed so you can sit outside. But if it's nighttime, it's really nice because you can
Yeah.
be indoor outdoor and I'm super low key, so while like the Saint is fancy, like I'm more of like a brew and pub kind of person, so I would totally go back there again just because like I didn't know anybody, so it's like the people who showed up were the ones that I got to see more than once, and that was a favorable place, Three Daughters Brewery, and they had really good cider even if we couldn't tap it at the party.
Well, I definitely know that you guys wanted to. You should explore Gulfport, which is kind of the general area you're staying in. That's a great place, and I also recommend for people coming back going to Dunedin as well. It's a great little downtown strip that you're going to see a lot more locals than you're going to see tourists, and it's a nice little area to go to. But there are a ton of amazing places to visit, and hopefully we'll be able to check some of those off the list this year. This question is
Okay.
kind of for three of you, and Leisha, we will ask you this question again when you return for the follow-up episode following this year's KindredCon. But Hugo Boss Jay, who is also coming to KindredCon for the first time this year, asks, did visiting St. Pete change how you saw the city in game? Did you get a better mind's eye? And we'll go through the list again. Crafty.
Absolutely. Just in the sense of how long it takes to drive places, factoring in traffic, factoring in the daylight hours. Like, it really gave me a good perspective of how things were laid out. It gave me a really good perspective of how actually close together a lot of things were, like, because on the map you see things on the map and you're just like, oh, there are a couple, like 3 blocks is a lot, but then you're actually there and I'm just like, I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
I can walk there in like 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Like
for
the
those
Fine Arts
unfamiliar
Museum.
with Florida, it's a very condensed area. The peninsula itself is only about 20 to 30 miles across in its entirety, and that's the whole peninsula. So even the downtown area is so people stacked on top of people, like very, very condensed, that a city block is actually a very small space geographically than it would seem on a map. But please continue, Crafty.
Yeah, I could the yacht club, the St. Pete Yacht Club, where we had Victoria Ash's wedding reception. I saw that at the distance from that to the Dali and the Fine Arts Museum on the map, and I'm just like, man, that's like far away. That's like super far. And then we get there and we walked from the yacht club to the Dali Museum in less than 5 minutes. Walked. And I'm just like, damn. Downtown is smaller. Like, it made me realize the Toreador don't have enough territory. We need to expand.
Well, there's a lot within that territory, but also
There
I
is a
think
lot,
to
but we may
counter
need more.
that, you think about the time it takes you to get from St. Pete to Clearwater, which is not that far, but it could take you a good 40 or so minutes to get there because of highways, because of stoplights, because of traffic, because of everything. It definitely does give you a very surreal sense of scope in terms of distance and everything, and how long it would take characters to get from one place to another, whether they drive or take an Uber or walk or whatever.
Speaking of Clearwater, actually going there and seeing where
That
the
was so
Tremere
cool.
set up, I felt less safe in this perfectly manicured area than I did in the most beat up ghetto neighborhood, because I walked over there and I'm just like, the Church of Scientology is right next to the bus station and the police station. This is creepy.
Yep,
It was terrifying.
Clearwater is, well, proper Clearwater, not Clearwater Beach, is an experience unto itself.
It's Stepford vibes.
But Cole, why don't you go ahead and take it from here? Did this kind of give you a better idea of what the area was like, and kind of, I mean, it was already the culture shock of being America, but then on top of that, having spent so much in-game time in the St. Pete Clearwater area, like seeing it firsthand, what was that experience like for you?
That was amazing. Like, to basically come off what Crafty was saying, going to Clearwater, going and seeing where the chantry was, because it's some people, a lot of people know my first character was a Tremere, and canonically had been there for a long time. So it was absolutely intense. And to be honest, it's one of my like top 10 moments of the trip was being there with Lakar,
Yeah,
because we
you, me,
both played Tremere.
Lakar, and Kat all went.
Yeah, but to stand in front of there with Lakar, because of the connection our characters had, and I mentioned this in the last After Dark that I was on, like siblings, and to be able to stand there in front of the place and get a photo wearing our Tremere gear, that was intense. That was so cool. And again, one of my top 10 moments of the trip. But it was really surreal. And Crafty's right, it's very surreal walking around that area. But like the driving tour that you did with me, I think it was the first night or two we got there. I got there. But we drove around, we went around Clearwater, we sort of had a look around, and it was amazing. And getting to see the city of a nighttime gives you a really good understanding. Like, oh my goodness, just even being through St. Pete and that walking tour, some of the art displays and everything on the pier in that area the events that had been held on the pier made more sense to me. Seeing the distance drive from St. Pete to Sarasota over that bridge, I never got to go over there, but knowing and speaking to people, because I'm a talkative person, I had to chat to random locals a few times. It's fun. Never know who you're going to meet. And just even some of the conversations that I had gave me a really good insight into just how separated the areas are, even to Tampa. But Tampa's still really close to St. Petersburg. So knowing the story of the Exodus, that's not a big territory to be. Like, that's like being like a cardboard wall between you and your enemy. Like, someone's going to punch through that at any point. It's pretty intense. It was just really cool.
Yeah, that was
It
very
gave
cool
me a
about going
really
to the
good
airport,
perspective.
picking you up at the airport the second time and taking everyone up on top of the parking deck and being like, that's
Yeah.
it right there. And you can see St. Pete from here and like being on that pier area, you can see across the bay and it is within sight. It is not a long
Yeah.
distance. Like it's very
Just
much, you feel the
glaring at each
looming
other.
presence. And that was kind of the intention behind the game. The
Yeah.
motivation behind the game is you got a tale of two cities that are not that far apart and have, even in reality, a rivalry between them. A lot of people living in the peninsula, Pinellas County, do not go to Tampa for any reason. For just cause it's a whole different world over there. And so yeah, getting to see that and like seeing the players realize just the reality of, there's this metropolis just across the bay that is looming and has the taller buildings and everything that's just right there. Yeah. Memek, you too. Did this kind of change your perspective about how you viewed the area and the game as a whole?
No, because I didn't do any tours. I didn't go see anything because I didn't realize that you all were picking up one another like half an hour before I got there. I got picked up by one person and went straight to dance. So I
Right.
didn't see the city. And then I left on Sunday in the middle of the day, and the tour was like in the middle of the day gather afternoon. So it was like everything that worked for the majority didn't like it just didn't happen. So I didn't go anywhere. When I was there, I didn't see the Dali. I didn't see the peninsula. And before I became a storyteller, I was in the clan La Sombra, which was one of the smallest clans at the start of the game, and never, even if it had a few instances of gaining quite a few members, it never really tapped out. And by the time I was a storyteller and KindredCon happened, I think they more or less were kind of moved from the area that they had been in.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I was, with the exception of when I was at Treasure Island, that was the closest I got to the chicken church, which was their haven. So really, I I stayed at the pool. Like, I invited people, but I'm like, I vacation to relax, and so I stayed at my Airbnb and relaxed in the pool, and I read and invited people over. Couple people did, but other than that, I was primarily doing stuff for Anarchs, and that was way north of where everyone was going.
Right. Right. And
Not
that
too
was
many people were really going into what we had dubbed the neutral zone or north into Clearwater, but my grandpa lived in Clearwater, so I've already been there. So for me, I've been to
yeah, you had a
Clearwater
very
more than once.
realistic picture already.
Yeah, so I've already been to Clearwater. So really, I think, like, if anything that changed it, because even now, like, when we were building our coterie, you're like, "That's the princess," and I'm like, "Is it though?" Like, I didn't have a concept of what
Right.
was other people's because I didn't necessarily play with the majority of players when I was a Lasombra because, Sabbat history and what have you. And then doing storyteller, I was pigeonholed into my little section. So really, it didn't bring much back for me. If anything, it did bring back that I got to connect with people because up until that point, I had only connected with people online. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who came to KindredCon had been able to connect, or they came with their partner, or they had met people on the road trip, and I hadn't done that. Um, Maybe one or two people because of Gen Con, but
Well, and that was one of the things about the event not being as formal as a traditional convention is there was a lot of like groups doing their own thing. Like we had several groups or houses of people that kind of, for the most part, stuck to themselves and did things their own way. And that can be a good and a bad thing. It can be good because it does give you a sense of space and privacy and the ability to kind of control your own destiny, that you're not at the whims of like the entire event or organization. But also at the same time, it can make, it feel very divided and very like broken into pieces at times. And so it is a good and a bad thing about it. And it is something that, we're taking into consideration in future events of ways to like organize more group stuff and kind of make a schedule more in advance, so that everybody can make their travel plans around that. The van tour was kind of a last minute decision thing, and so that was kind of a big part of it. But yeah, no, that's totally a very good perspective to have. Feeling that you weren't necessarily as involved or didn't get the opportunities that other people got. And so that's something that hopefully we can remedy going forward as we do more and more of these events into the future. But yeah, it was a lot of it was very thrown together. A lot of it was very, put together last minute when checking to see if people had interest in stuff and whatnot. And it was, communication being as good as it was also, again, very divided at points where certain groups were doing certain things, other groups were doing others. And that's, that is the nature of the beast, I guess.
But we did have feedback. And so before the end of January happened last year, I had a website put together for KCON. I was like, KCON 24 is going to happen, but I will have everything organized. So we haven't, put the website out, but we have the forum where we have everything listed on there.
Yep.
So like I just went through and I posted all of the stuff for food, right? So there's a huge list that another member of the server helped put together. And then I went through and added like and made sure that they're still open and put on like one, dollar sign to show if it's like, 10 to 20 or $2 for 20 and up. So, there is some things that we are putting in this year after
Yeah.
last year to make sure like things like that. So like I did put on there, I think I posted, but like I'll be doing swing dance again this year. So if people want to go, it'll be on Wednesday
Yep.
night. And if people come into town, they can go.
Yep. And we're probably going to do even better next year, to be completely honest. Like, I know the revamp really shifted a lot of our efforts and kind of derailed a lot of our original plans. I had expected a similar or bigger sized crowd, but then with the revamp, people's interest shifts, things change, arrangements, are disabled or distorted. But yeah, I mean, this is also a nice kind of breather as well this year, as we're expecting a smaller crowd. There's going to be, I think, a lot more togetherness and group activities considering the smaller numbers. But yeah, so let's talk next about Saturday night, the big actual gathering. I'd rented a venue known as the Magic Ballroom, the venue we're going to actually be using again this year. It was where this was the one expectation for everyone, is if you're coming, this is the event you're going to go to, the Saturday night event. So Crafty, why don't you start us off by talking us through kind of what Saturday was like for you after those 2 very busy days prior to that.
Saturday was more being busy because like when I got there, I just kind of went into work mode and started helping set up. And then I went from helping set up to helping people with their makeup, because people were doing cosplays and asked for my help with makeup because they knew I was good at it. So like I made Took look like Beetlejuice. I helped Panchi do a skull mask.
Ghosts, yeah.
Yeah, because she was coming as her dead character. And I had to do my own makeup, and then I had to get a ride back to my Airbnb because I didn't bring a change of clothes because I forgot one. But it was but once I got back, it was a lot of fun. We were dancing. People were trying to get me to eat, and I never actually did eat because I'm irresponsible. But it was fun. It was just a lot of fun. We were dancing, people were making TikToks. There was a lightsaber fight at one point, which was crazy. And then like I will admit that at the end of the night when it was time for teardown, I kind of fell into head chef mode again, which Cole was saying, yes, chef. Like she didn't even,
Yeah.
she just immediately like, yes, chef. And I'm just like, ah, crap, I'm doing it again. And I was like, with chef voice, mixing in apologies, being like, I am sorry, I'm raising my voice. I'm just trying to get us out of here on time. Apologies for my tone. But we
Look,
got it all
having worked
cleaned up.
Having worked in kitchens myself, I'm like, I know exactly. Oh, hell no, we ain't doing this.
I'm sorry.
It's all right, I love you.
And Cole, why don't
But
you
no,
talk
it was
about
fun.
your? Oh, sorry, yeah.
No, it was fun.
Cole, talk about your experience on the Saturday night, because this was the time that everybody was going to be in the same place, not just the scattered groups and the hordes you'd been a part of.
Oh, Steve, you make it sound so lovely.
Mm.
I'm going to be honest, it was absolutely amazing. It was so good to see everybody together. It was so good to have everybody in one room. I did muck around with a bit of cosplay with Alana, which I bought her, even though I'd retired the character at that point. And it was awesome to get the Tremere family photos. And the photographer that you had for the event they were amazing. It was so good to have an actual professional photographer. That's the photos and the images that came out of that that was so good. The memories contained in them was just, so much appreciation for that. I have a revolving screensaver on my computer that is those photos.
Mm-hmm.
Even now, that's what it is. It's my trip photos. And the evening itself, the awards, I actually have your entire speech recorded.
I'd love to get a
I
copy of
recorded-
that. I know there was another recording, but I do not have access to it anymore, so that would be great to see.
I recorded your entire speech that night. So yeah, I'll get a copy of that to you, but that made me cry. Other people getting up for the things they said made me cry. I think I needed more water than I've ever drunk in my life. Saying something, I drank a lot of water. Just in that trip, the amount of tears I cried, it's like, Gatorade, now, let's go, But it was absolutely crazy. It was so much fun. And it was like seeing the culmination of that year's worth of work, more from everybody, new people, old people. It was an experience I'll never forget.
Absolutely.
The lightsaber fight, I'm like, well, yeah, this is what happens when you get a bunch of nerds together. And we actually had someone adjudicating it who does actual refereeing for STA. And I'm like, yeah, vampire convention, lightsaber fight, sure, why not?
Makes sense.
I've got I have videos of that. I'm not normally a big photo person, but the amount of photos and videos I took on that trip,
Oh,
I'm like,
absolutely.
I never want to forget this.
I took so many TikToks.
But it was a great night. And even though this year is going to be smaller, I wish I could be there. Like, you have no idea. I legitimately was looking at flights 2 nights ago going, I can make it work,
We
right?
can pull it off in 2
We can do it.
weeks.
Sure, I can.
It only
I can
took 4
definitely-
months the first time, but 2 weeks this time. Why not?
You know
Look,
everything now.
All I need is the money.
Right.
Money in a tent, because I don't care. I'll sleep in your backyard in a tent. I don't care. It's me. I really actually wouldn't care.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Sleep with the squirrels.
I'll get me a squirrel. I'll be fine.
You're used to the outback. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Rebecca, why don't you go ahead and talk about your Saturday night experience too?
Yeah, it was good. We were shopping at the dollar store, buying some last minute goods. That was fun. No, we really, I had said ahead of time that I was like more comfortable making sure that setup happened because I was flying out the next day. I was like, I will get setup started. And then if you want to drink or do whatever you want to do or remain here, I will take your car, Kent, and drive it back to your house because I'm not drinking at all tonight. And so it was a good evening. It was good to see everyone in one place, not hangry. Everyone came for this like penultimate like event.
Yeah.
Everyone, was cordial with everyone. Everyone was polite. Everyone was friendly. There was a few individuals to the one side, taking photos, and then on some of the tables, um, playing games. There was people playing Magic, and there were people playing board games. And to the other
Mm.
side, we had the character art slideshow, and then we had the whole bar, and everyone who had brought food. And it seemed that the majority of individuals, I'd say, probably fell into three-ish Airbnbs, more or less, and then
Yeah.
everyone else kind of was, like, here and there. So they just had, like, these cooking parties and were bringing in, like, troughs of food, and it was like we had enough food for too many people, and we had so many drinks, and, like, I brought an entire keg from Three Daughters Brewery, and we couldn't even tap it because we didn't nobody there knew how.
But we also had a excess of drinks that people had brought, and I mean, there
Yeah.
were so many
Yeah, it wasn't
leftovers,
even
and
needed. It
oh my
wasn't even
goodness,
needed.
there was a
Yeah, so
cake. There was, yeah, it was crazy.
there was cookies and more cookies, and the venue was like, it's a really cool venue to go to because it's like the dance floor, but it has these two little alcoves on the side, and then you have the kitchen and the bar in the middle with side rooms and bathrooms, so you can be in this venue and not feel like you're all in one room.
Yeah, it was a
You
perfect
are.
size for the number of people. I felt like there was enough distance that you didn't feel
Mhm.
piled on top of each other, but you also, had some room to get some space if you needed it. But you could also see everybody and hear everybody and still be a part of it without feeling like you were too far away.
Yeah, so it was good, and we were able to give people awards, and they were crying because they were like, I've never gotten an award before, and so that was like something we were able to include. And then we had just like we were able to raffle off things and give people gifts that they didn't anticipate getting. Um and a lot of it was donated by the community, and I think that
Mhm.
was really cool, is that when you go to a convention, oftentimes they'll have little swag bags from the companies, and you don't have too many people who have like companies just giving out goods here. But we had a bunch of people who are like, I will crochet this, I will give this art out, I will donate the set of dice. And so we
Absolutely.
really had a bunch of people who came together and were donating things that were really cool. And so a lot of people were able to walk away with something like not only the memories, but also like a little something on the side too.
And
That
we're
was
going to have more donations this year as well.
Mm.
A bigger variety of things to
Yep.
give away, which is going to be a lot of fun. But let's transition to this other question that Jay submitted. Let me see if I can find it here. It
I
was
also
basically,
posted them in the chat.
oh, fantastic. So the question was, what lessons did you learn from the entire KindredCon experience? Oh shoot, I did not mean to open that. Let's go ahead and close that. What did you walk away with learning from this experience and this whole event? So Crafty, we'll go ahead and start with you. And then we're going to talk
So,
about this year's KindredCon so we can bring Leisha back into the
yeah.
conversation.
So the thing I learned from this year is, and it was something that both me and Mouse like right away immediately, even before the first event was over, we're already agreeing on, which was catering.
Yeah.
Catering was the way to go. Like while a potluck is great, there was just too much food and a lot and too much, and like the potluck part was not organized well, so there were a lot of extra, like I'm pretty sure at one point we had 10 charcuterie boards.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we had 10 charcuterie boards.
Yeah.
My kind of party.
It was that kind of party. And like we had a whole table of just desserts. And
That was
just so much food went uneaten and had to go to waste basically. And for someone who has worked in kitchens and who has done catering and who has done events like that, when I see food waste, it drives me insane because that's money. That's money that you consume right there. And I'm just like, that is so, like, me and Mouse, like, right when we got back, we sat down, we created a food survey list to account for allergens and everything, because that's something that we noticed too, is that none of the stuff that was brought in had a list of potential allergens.
Yep.
So we did a food survey to accommodate for people's dietary restrictions. So we have a completely gluten-free menu for this year that is going to that covers everyone's dietary needs. And then if any, like, we're basically having people, if they want to contribute, they can donate to the Sam's Club trip, the Sam's Club run, where we can do cost control to make sure that we get enough food for the night, where there might be some leftovers, but not enough leftovers that it could potentially go to waste.
Yes.
And it's going to be a lot more organized.
Absolutely. And Cole, what was something you learned from this last KindredCon? Or what was an important lesson you took away?
One, learn how to damn well drive in your country. So I am not relying on anyone else for transport. For those who don't know, we drive on the right side of the road over here in Australia, not the wrong side. But basically make sure my transport's a bit better, because I missed a lot of opportunities to see people because I didn't organize transport, like independent transport. But not only that, I think for me, it's learning to. I loved the whole event. I loved everything. I do wish that I had just gone stuff it and annoyed a few more people. So there's a lot of people I didn't get to hang out with as much as I wanted to, that I found out later on would have loved to, but didn't realize. Because I'm more of a sit back and I'm like, well, I'm here. I've come 18,000 kilometers. You want to see me? Message me. But I'm going to annoy more people next time I come over, and I'm going to get in people's faces even more than I already do. So by all means, tell me off, but that's what I'll be doing different next time. Otherwise, wouldn't have changed it for the world.
Rebecca, what's an important lesson you learned from this past year's KindredCon?
I think the first one was like the organization of it. Like, I had the website. I was like, I got to have all this information in one spot. And this is before Discord had made the areas like they do now. Not to say it's not relevant, because we have our website, so like it could be relevant, especially if we have more people in the future.
Yeah.
But I created a website like within a week of coming home, because people were still there. So, I flew in on a Thursday, out on a Sunday. So I was like, well, these are the places people want to eat. These are the places people want to stay. I looked up places. And so, lesson that I learned was having more information based on the area, because if we were to do it here, Seattle meetup, I could have it in a minute, because I've created events here. But not being there on site, I think that was one of the lessons I learned was, a lot of people had talked about wanting like a pool party potentially, but pool it's not really a thing in Florida. I found out, like, to have pools like indoor pools in January.
Yeah, no.
And January in Florida can be fickle, because like last year we learned there was a cold snap with like 50-degree, 40-degree weather. It was frozen. It was frozen there the week before we all got there.
Yep.
It was iguana falling out of tree weather.
Yep.
And so like as a result, outdoor pools aren't necessarily a thing. So like it's like, okay, well, that's not going to happen. So I think that was like one of the lessons, like people were giving feedback on things that weren't really necessarily like plausible. Like they're possible, but not necessarily something we could incorporate. Like with a smaller group, fine. But as we get more people coming into the server and, going through one shots or joining more coteries, it just,
more information is better, and making it
more
centrally
information.
located.
Yeah, having like informed consent, but also being able to be there in person really helped me realize like what is feasible and what is good. And so like when I was talking about like the food list, like having that there, because if you have dietary restrictions like I do, like that's one of the things you have to eat.
Yeah.
Right. And so finding that, so making sure I had that, because like that was one of the things when we were walking along the pier. It's like, where can we eat? Because at that point we didn't have anyone organized really to say like, okay, we need a place that's diabetic friendly, vegan, gluten free, dairy free, etc. It's like, no, we just need something. And so we were trying to like accommodate this like late night thing. And I think that having like a list like that's helpful so people on their own can take care of
For
their own
sure.
needs.
For
And
sure.
then, also any other lessons really being more proactive with it ahead of time, because that was one of the things is that even though we had talked about it ahead, like we had said earlier in this episode, we had discussed meeting up prior to KinderCon. A lot of people said like they felt like they didn't have enough information soon enough somehow.
Right.
So we kind of asked people like, well, how long in advance do you want? Like, and so we kind of looked at like hotel block options and things like that. And so um I think that that was another lesson is just to be like straightforward, have the information for people, have it out there, and have that balance of yes, this is our one night thing. Yes, we'll meet up otherwise, but it's not like we're
Right.
excluding other people. And I think that was a good important balance because like you were saying earlier, the people who were meeting up were friends. There was a lot of people who came last year that were friends ahead of time. So it was logical that if you have
For
these
sure.
10 people going to coffee each morning, it's not because they're excluding other people, it's because they're friends. They've
Right.
known each other. They're all from XYZ state. They came to the server because they played D&D together or whatever it was. So I think like that was another lesson to learn because we have the opportunity to meet up with one another, but really connect with everyone, even if you haven't met them before.
For sure. For sure. And I learned a few lessons myself, being one of the first, events that I've organized and financed. One of them being move. I need to move. I need to find a new house. But
Mm-hmm.
no, realistically, I think that it's people are going to people, and that it is a good thing to kind of let people do their own thing, have that kind of space that we've had at the previous event of letting people, go out with their friends and not having it be a rigidly scheduled, everyone's, a lot of expectations on people, but also to kind of temper your own expectations to that as well. Not have unspoken expectations of people either, because like I know I also felt like didn't see these people at all, like where are they, what are they doing, and so I think that just kind of saying like, yep, I said Saturday night's the event thing, that's the time I'm gonna see people, I'm not gonna expect to see people otherwise. And that was a good and a bad thing. Like I got to hang out with the people I hung out with. I got to have a lot more time to myself than I thought I was gonna have, which was a good relaxing break from the chaos of it all, but also just to communicate more. I think communication is very, very important, and having steady streams of communication is very important. Of like, hey, what's everybody doing? Being the one, like Cole said, to not ask out, like, or not to wait for people to invite you, but instead to find out what other people are doing. So for those of you who are coming, whether this is your first time or not, like, yeah, you're coming in where there are established friend groups and established, people who have connections, and they're going to make plans amongst each other. But like, don't be afraid to say, hey, what's everybody doing tonight? It's Thursday night. I'm in town. What's everybody doing? You might be surprised. You might get invited to something, and you might forge those friendships. And so I think that's very important. But also, yeah, I agree with Mimic as well. Better communication, better, transparency about like what's going on, what are places to eat, what do what options are available. And so it's been a very big learning experience for me. So now talking about this year, and
Yeah.
sorry, Cole, you're gonna have to just sit back and feel the FOMO. Um, KindredCon 2 Electric Boogaloo, the uh, sequel, as it were, the second annual
Squeakle.
event, uh, is going to be kind of a smaller affair with a smaller crowd and a lower turnout. We knew that with the transition of the revamp, that some people were going to leave, some people were going to join. It was going to be kind of a different affair, and that didn't give us as much time for planning as we would have liked. But we still have the venue secured. We're still going to be doing the things we do, and it's not going to be expecting costumes and everything. It's going to be a little bit more low key, but we're still going to have great giveaways. We're going to get to spend great time together, and that's fun. So my question for all of you would be, what are you looking forward to most about this upcoming year's KindredCon? Sorry, Cole. Crafty, go ahead.
Hugs. I'm excited to see my friends. I'm excited to see people I haven't met yet. And now, as a storyteller, I'm excited to actually meet one of my players that I'm tormenting. I mean, regaling with story. Entertaining,
You're
yeah, yeah.
entertaining them.
Entertaining them, absolutely. But no, I'm looking forward to meeting Alicia for the first time, because me and her are just a couple of like crochet old ladies. Like, we're literally crocheting while
Yeah.
this is going on right now. I'm looking forward to sharing an Airbnb with Mimic and Tyler and Bera. I get to see Bera for the first time, who is not just my friend, but he's also my dungeon master in a D&D game that we've been playing for the past year. I'm looking forward to it being low key too, because I feel like I'm gonna get more meaningful time with people.
Hmm. Absolutely. Alicia, this being your first ever, what are you most excited for as a whole about the event and the kind of getting together?
Well, I am really excited to finally meet everybody. I've only gotten to meet one person. I got to meet Tyler when he was in town. And it's gonna be so cool to finally like hug people, like be like, you're real. Like, I know you're real, but it's like you're physically here. We're in the same space. But also just like you were talking to Cole about culture shock coming from Australia to America, but I've been in Oregon pretty much my entire life. And just I've never been anywhere nearly tropical. So it's going to be really cool to experience like the different culture there and like the different climate there, and just go out and learn all these new things and have all these new experiences.
That's amazing. Rebecca, what are you most looking forward to this year?
It's awesome that now I've met people, because like going into it last year I hadn't met anybody, and this year I've met at least half of the people who are going there. I also think it's fun and exciting that I live driving distance to Leisha and one other person who's going to be there, but the first time we're gonna meet is in Florida, which is kind of funny because we're in the Pac Northwest. So it's like three people. That is very on brand for the Pac Northwest too, to not
We
meet
met
up while
somewhere that wasn't the
Ah,
Pac Northwest.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we
We-
live 4 hours away, but we're meeting in Florida.
They have this funny thing called the Seattle Freeze, but like it's real. We'll say we'll meet up, but maybe we won't. But we will, just in Florida, where the weather's good, which also really excited about having nicer weather, because we've been riding the 35-45 degree um temperature range, and so fingers crossed it does not dip anywhere near there while we're in
Yeah,
Florida.
this
So
countrywide storm that's kind of sweeping across has me a little bit nervous, but I think hopefully it'll be all cleared up by then.
yeah, no, we're supposed to have like 15 to 20 degree weather next weekend when I fly out. So fingers crossed that doesn't impact it. So really looking forward to good company, good weather, and good food, because Crafty is going to be hooking it up this year. And
Absolutely.
I went to
yeah,
culinary school, people.
yeah,
Do
get
it.
to see Kent again, which is exciting because this will be third time in a year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, being a Midwestern, more East Coast boy who hasn't been out west, you guys have a lot of space. I've been out west, I've driven, and now I've flown with a best friend that lives in Utah. I have seen your guys' side of the world. Everything's so big out there. Like when I make my drives to Michigan and back, I pass through like 6 states in 17 hours. No big deal. I spent 17 hours in Texas. Like,
So much
it's so much space out there. So the idea of you guys not crossing over as much doesn't necessarily surprise me, who's like, I've been through that desert. There is so much space. Like, there's just, why do you have so much space? But yes, it is very, very exciting and very cool. And I'm glad that we are keeping this going. Even though it is going to be a little more low key this coming year, I think next year we'll be back up again and running to a fuller capacity and to a bigger kind of more event. But I'm looking forward to a lot of the learning experiences. Like I'm always a person who thinks you never stop learning. You never stop kind of gaining some knowledge. I learned a lot from going to the Darkness Emergent event. I learned a lot from the KindredCon, first KindredCon, and now this one. And I think that it is a sight to behold, and I'm so honored and pleased. There are so many people that are interested. The people that this game, this community has meant so much to so many of you that you do make that trip, that you do take that risk and make the sacrifices you have to make and save all year and everything. It really does mean a lot to me because I literally had no expectations going into this server. I expected 20 people at best. I expected it wouldn't last more than 6 months. Like I had all these thoughts, and now as we're on the brink of the 2 year anniversary
Later.
since the first Elysium event, it does say so much about this community and you four amazing individuals, as well as all the amazing individuals watching and participating in this community, that we can make this happen. It is just super cool. So for anybody watching at home, if you're not a part of the St. Pete by Night community yet, you should go join us on Discord. The link is down below on Twitch and YouTube. It's in the description. Join the community, even if you don't end up playing for a while, even if you just end up meeting some fine folks, and you have an interest in joining us at KindredCon next year. It always takes place in one of the last weekends in January. It's a great excuse for everyone to de-thaw from the holidays, as well as a horrible winter, or in Cole's case, to cool down from what is the Aussie summer. But it is a good opportunity to be a part of the community, to kind of be a part of this amazing group of individuals. I am so blessed to have you all in my life at a time when I've needed it more than ever, and I really do appreciate having you guys here and being a part of that. So go follow these incredible individuals on their social media. We're going to be back with another episode of After Dark after that KindredCon, where we're going to break down how it went. We're definitely going to have Leisha there to talk about her experiences with her first KindredCon. As far as programming goes, we have a Rage Across Tampa this Tuesday, where the Werewolf Pack is going to face off with the starving remnant of the previous Tier of Gaia Seeker, and we're going to see how that goes. Then we have Don't Get Caught on Thursday, and then after that, we're going to have another After Dark the following Friday, where I think we might discuss some St. Pete by Night lore and how everything came to be. And I am going to do a lore/AMA about St. Pete, where you can ask everything that you've wanted to know about how this came to be. Maybe some secrets about some stuff that still never got revealed in game. All of these amazing details about the first iteration, the setting, and kind of the future of St. Pete by Night. So tune in for that. Then the following Tuesday, we are going to have another Rage Across Tampa, and then unfortunately it's another break. I know some of you have been waiting, and that this was some of the longest 2 weeks for a lot of you who are avidly invested in St. Pete by Night, but we're going to take another break so that KindredCon can happen, and then we will be back following all of that. So stay tuned to the Twitch channel and the calendar for details on that. But Crafty, Cole, Leisha, Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Crafty, go ahead.
Happy birthday, Alicia.
And yes, happy birthday to our dear Leisha, who as of this recording has turned
31.
31.
We're the same age.
You can join the old Vampires Club, the Ancilla Vampires Club, soon enough. But again, stay tuned to social media for the hashtag KindredCon or St. Pete by Night, where you might see TikToks, you might see Instagram posts, you might see all the things that are happening over here in St. Pete, Florida. And stay tuned to St. Pete by Night on all social media if you want to get involved in the game, if you want to see some amazing OCs from some amazing TikTokers and other social media stars who make content of their characters and make content of their games. And you can stay tuned to all of that by following St. Pete by Night on all that social media linked down below. Instagram, Twitter, now known as X, Check us out on Discord. Check us out on YouTube to see past episodes. Just stay in the know about everything that's happening with St. Pete by Night, because we're not going anywhere. This may be KindredCon 2, but I still have in my head a KindredCon 10th anniversary somewhere in the long future. So I'm not planning on going anywhere, and you shouldn't go anywhere either. But thank you so much for joining us tonight, and have a good evening, because there are things that go bump in the night. Good night, everyone.